Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after a disappointing 126-119 loss to the Philadelphia 76ers at Wells Fargo Center on Saturday night. I mean, disappointing. That's really the only way you can really put it. It's kind of a weird game. Like Quentin Grimes goes for a career high of 44 points. This is a guy that averages 9 points on his career. Former Warrior Kelly Oubre Jr. and Gershon Yabusele combined for 82 points in this game on 14 of 22 three-point shooting. Absolutely torched the Warriors. And yet Golden State probably still should have won. Really, it comes back down to you can talk as much as you want about that second half and the back and forth nature of it. And the Warriors came back to tie the game on multiple occasions. They looked at one point, they got like 3 dunks in a row from Steph. Steph got a dunk, and then Santos and Peyton also got dunks off steals, I think, and you thought, okay, the Warriors had the momentum, they should win this game. But it was back and forth down the stretch, and it really comes back down to that first stretch in the first half with Steph on the bench, where the Warriors were minus 14. They were plus 2 in the Curry minutes in the first half, and as a result, they fell down by 12 at halftime, and they were pushing uphill for the remainder of the game, and it was always going to be a struggle from that point, particularly without Jimmy Butler. He was a late scratch in this game with back spasms. So no Jimmy, his absence was really felt in that first half, and they had like Pods, Gee, Moody, Draymond, Quentin Post, Kevin Knox even got a run in the first half. Pat Spencer even got a run, although that was alongside Steph in the first half. And the Warriors just didn't have that next go-to guy. Like, as much as, Quentin Post was impressive again, 16 points, and they had 7 double-digit scorers, none of those scorers are necessarily guys that you put the ball in the hands of and ask to go make a play. So when Jimmy's not there and you don't have one of Jimmy or Steph on the floor, it really, things become stagnant, and you can really only get baskets out of trying to run really well-designed plays. And sometimes basketball just comes down to, are you talented enough? Are you good enough to put the ball in the basket? And unfortunately, guys outside of Steph in this game just weren't necessarily capable of doing that unless Steph created for them, right? And he had 29 points, 13 assists, a really good Steph game. Kind of didn't rest for as much in the second half, and Steve clearly wanted to win this game and understood the importance of it. And Steph was, only rested 4 or 5 minutes in that second half, if that. So the Warriors wanted this game. They played hard down the stretch. A few, I wouldn't even say like refereeing decisions, more so just like unfortunate stuff where Draymond fouled Grimes on a 3-point attempt, kind of basically forced Kerr to challenge it. It was a foul. Don't know why they challenged it. And then basically the play after, Kelly Oubre, the ball gets tipped out first by Paul George out of bounds. They call Philly ball when it was clearly off George. The Warriors don't have a challenge. Then you've got the one after that where Oubre and Santos kind of touched the ball. I suppose it was the right call in the end, but it was going to be Warrior ball, and Philly were able to challenge it, and it was reversed. So just some unfortunate stuff, I suppose, happened late in the game, but you also make your own luck. And the fact that Draymond, forced Steve into reviewing that foul call, that was a mistake, and it wasn't a good Draymond game. He did some nice things, but he also made some egregious mistakes that I thought really cost the Warriors the game. A couple of his missed layups in the first half. Like, what the hell was that? Like, the Warriors missed some layups in the first half that legit I would make. Dead set I'd make. Most people would make. So yeah, some of the stuff in the first half, and particularly that stint where Steph was on the bench, that's what really cost the Warriors the game. And they fought back, and it looked like they were probably going to be able to take it there down the stretch. And unfortunately, like Philly have got some talented players. It's a kind of weird situation when you get 82 points from those 3 combined role players. And then Paul George got it going a bit in the fourth quarter, finished with 17, but was still relatively quiet. And Tyrese Maxey had an awful game. He was 5 points, 2 of 14 shooting. So the Warriors' 5-game winning streak is snapped, and Philly, they entered on a 9-game losing streak, and they managed to snap that. Look, I'm not going to say I'm totally surprised. It felt like when Butler was announced as out or reported as out, it felt like, okay, this is a real danger game, and I wouldn't be surprised if Philly take this one, and that's kind of how it amounted. It's disappointing that the Warriors couldn't take hold of the 6th seed. They could have surpassed the Clippers with a win in this one. Weren't able to capitalize. I suppose the good news is the Mavericks also lost to the Bucks. So, they're still in an okay position. I'm not panicking just yet. It's one disappointing loss, but there's probably going to be a couple more of these. Hopefully only a couple more of these for the remainder of the season. It just hurts a little bit more, I suppose, when Steph plays really well and they push his minutes fairly hard on what is the first game of a 3-game in 4-night stretch with Charlotte on Monday and then the Knicks at Madison Square Garden on Tuesday. I'll get into your guys' comments here. Knox says, I don't get why it is taking JK 2 months to come back from an ankle injury. Yeah, it's a weird one. Shams reported before the game that, to go back to Slater's report yesterday, there was thought that JK could return on Monday against the Hornets. Now Shams is saying that the Warriors might decide to pull Kuminga out entirely until the end of the road trip and the Warriors' first game back at home at Chase Center, which I think is next Saturday against the Pistons, I believe. So that means that Kuminga would still be another 3 games. So all of a sudden that would extend out to basically 29 games missed for an ankle injury. That's over a third of the season. I don't know what's going on. They're being very, very patient with it. I don't know. It sounds like there's some stuff, where he's probably not responding overly well to some of the workouts they're putting him through in terms of the ankle and stuff. I don't know, but it's a bit weird. I do agree with that. Daniel says, sounds like it was a pretty bad ankle sprain that kept flaring up. Exactly. Also said, I remember when I said he might not be back before the deadline. Now I just wish he was back after All-Star. We need scoring punch and athleticism, especially with Jimmy out. Yeah, it was initially can he come back before the deadline? Then it was, okay, he should be right after the All-Star break. And now it's getting pushed out to, what are we? We're 5 games after the All-Star break now. It sounds like it could be another 3. So all of a sudden it's like the 9th game back after All-Star break. He's back. I don't know. It was weird. Dan Decker says this felt like pre-Butler. Well, it kind of is, because it's like the Warriors without that second genuine star. And I think if Jimmy plays this game and is somewhat okay, then we probably win this game. Simple as that. Robbie says Jimmy and JK both needed to have a chance in the playoff. They both provide so much. Yeah, and that's why it's disappointing to lose this game, but also I can't take too much into it when you're missing your second and third best scorers. Simple as that. And it just means that other guys have to step up into roles that they're not necessarily accustomed to at this point of their career. We needed more from Brandon Bajemski, and he just delivered nothing to the point where he wasn't even in the closing lineup really down the stretch. He went 5 points, 5.6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 of 8, minus 16 in the game. Only played 25 minutes, which you'd think with Jimmy out, Pods might have played high 30s. Moody played 38 minutes in this game, but he wasn't great either. Draymond the stat line looks okay, 13, 8, and 8. But some of his passing, a couple of his missed layups in the first half, and then that one at the end where he just fouled Grimes. I know, I get it, right? Grimes is absolutely killing you from beyond the arc. He finished 6 of 9. I get you want to close out strong, but you're down 2 in that scenario with, what was it, under a minute to play or under 90 seconds to play, whatever it was. Just be smart, close out appropriately. And then if you do foul, just acknowledge that you fouled him. Don't force Steve into a timeout to challenge it, because if you hadn't have done that, then the following play where Paul George clearly tips the ball out of bounds, Steve would have been able to challenge that. It's all of a sudden Warrior ball with down 3 there in the final minute. So I don't know, not a great Draymond game. Stan Decker also says Kerr should stop listening to Draymond wasting challenges on obvious fouls. Knox says would have been a great game to win, would have been 6th. Then next says, did Post even play in the 4th? I think he played early 4th. Just having a look at this. Yeah, he played for, let's have a look, how much did he play for? He didn't come back after the 8:37 mark, so he played the first 3.5 minutes of the 4th quarter. Weird game for him, did a lot of good, did a bit of bad stuff as well, didn't shoot the ball, was 6 of 15, did go 4 of 9 from 3, which is great. Had 9 rebounds, 16 points, was Warriors' second leading scorer. He's continuing his 3-point shooting is remarkable. I keep laughing. Opposing teams, he just finds himself wide open on these pick and pops with Steph, obviously, and teams That's going to be hard to guard. That's going to be hard to guard because he's like almost as automatic as Steph on these open threes. Like, it's ridiculous. But he had some other stuff like around the basket where could have been better. A couple of times defensively where he could have been better. So a weird game for him. Like, I'm surprised he didn't come back in the game, but like Steve kind of went to Draymond at center and then had a bunch of wings out there. Had GP2 out there. I thought GP2 played pretty well. One of his better games for the season, 15, 7, and 4. I thought he was pretty good. Buddy Hield was a disaster. Moody obviously played a lot. Guy Santos played a lot. He was okay, made that error kind of in the final 30, 40 seconds there where he inbounded the ball, then didn't get back in court in time before Draymond passed it back to him. And that was a turnover, and that was basically the end of the game. But otherwise had 14, 4, 2 assists, 2 steals in 18 minutes. So this was kind of a game where Steph got going early, had 12 points in the first, and then from that point, the 76ers really made an emphasis of, and this has kind of been a Nick Nurse thing in the past with the Raptors as well. Like, they put an emphasis on, okay, we're just not going to allow him to, kill us with scoring. And therefore, Steph goes for 13 assists and continually set up his teammates and was great passing the ball and stuff like that. And the Warriors just weren't able to take advantage enough, having shot only 46% from the floor, 28.6% from three-point range. The 76ers, meanwhile, I mean, they just shot the crap out of the ball, 52.9% from the floor, 57.6%, 19 of 33 from three-point range. They also had 9 more free throw attempts. So you wonder, well, okay, so how did the Warriors stay in this game with those shooting disparities percentage-wise and then the free throw disparity? Well, the 76ers missed 11 of their 28 free throws for starters. Grimes, it was so bizarre because he went for 44 points, could not miss from the field, but then when he got to the charity stripe, he couldn't hit anything. He was, 2 of 8 from the free throw line, but went 18 of 24 from the field, 6 of 9 from 3. It was so bizarre, but anyway. The Warriors also had 8 more offensive rebounds, really crashed the glass. And also, I think if you look at the turnover battle, the turnover battle was about the same. So it was really the offensive glass and getting those second, third chance opportunities for the Warriors. It kind of kept them in the game. Jack says, whatever the game I watched was like watching the Kangaroos play footy, always witnessing opposing players have career nights. Yeah, there's a little bit of difference there in regards to North. If I don't really want to compare North Melbourne to Golden State, one is a 4-time champion in the last 10 years since 2015, and the other is perennially one of the worst teams in the AFL. So to compare those two teams is a bit unfair on the Warriors. I think you can say that opposing players have career highs against North Melbourne is because North Melbourne just legitimately suck, as opposed to, I think a lot of these guys, like, they come up against the Warriors and they see it as a real challenge and they try and have career performances because they're super motivated. And I think that's what you saw from Quentin Grimes. Kelly Oubre played pretty well. Yabusele. We've seen this in the past, like teams and individual players seem to get up for the Warriors to play against them. Knox says, why does everyone try so hard against the Warriors? Grimes is literally averaging like 8 points a game or something like that. Barry says, this team needs some wings. Robbie says, Pods and Moody cooled off a bit. I mean, those guys just, like, they play so much better when Jimmy's there because they can fall back into a lesser role and just play a really good role for the team, as opposed to, when Jimmy's out, then everyone has to step up. And sometimes the step up doesn't necessarily translate to the skill set you've got and your ability to be able to actually do that. So, yeah, I mean, it's, again, I don't really want to take too much out of this game based on the fact that you're missing your second and third best scorers. And in saying that, it was actually the defense that hurt the Warriors, with Grimes obviously going off and Philly being hot from the field and three-point range. Barry says, Grimes, Cook, Pods, and Moody. Robbie says, I think Jimmy keeps Draymond locked in. Potentially, Draymond just had a weird night. Wasn't a good one, but then he kind of also did some good stuff. Yeah. Jay says, where was Post in the fourth quarter? Well, he had that ankle issue that seemed to be bothering him a little bit. Now, I don't think he was out of the game at all. Like, he could have come back, but I suppose Steve probably saw some things defensively that he probably didn't like, and therefore Quentin didn't get back on the court in the last 8.5 minutes. But I can perfectly understand why you guys are asking and questioning whether or not he should have come back in the game, because at the end of the day, the guy went 4 of 9 from beyond the arc. Like, he's such a sniper. Like, can we say, like, I don't know, Buddy Hield went 0 of 6 from 3-point range. Like, is Quinton Post legitimately the second best 3-point shooter on the team? Like, if you had everyone lined up ready to go for a catch and shoot, you might almost take Quinton Post second ahead of Buddy Hield or anyone else behind Steph. He's almost automatic catch and shoot. Like, it's ridiculous. But some of the defensive stuff still needs to be ironed out, and there's going to be nights where Steve wants a bit more versatility and goes small with Draymond at the 5. Robbie says, is it just me or should Post start? Well, he did in this game because Butler was out, but we'll wait and see. It's really going to have to be matchup dependent, I think. Like, obviously, if one of the main 5 are out, then, yeah, of course, Post will start. Or Kuminga when he comes back, potentially. But otherwise, like, I think majority of the time, they'll probably continue starting Steph, Pods, Jimmy, Moody, and Draymond. And then if they're coming up against a real big who they don't want Draymond to necessarily guard one-on-one and put the workload on him defensively, then perhaps they'll go bigger with Post. And probably over Moody. That's what we saw in the second half against the Magic on Thursday. Jay says Green was atrocious all game, both offense and defense. Hard to disagree. Cody says it's okay, guys. Just one game. Butler and Kuminga will be back. I like our chances. Agree with that. Thandeka Grimes should have never been allowed to score 40. Why do we not double him? I mean, you got a point, but are we really going to be out there doubling Quentin Grimes? Like, I suppose at some point you've got to, but at some point you also think to yourself, hang on, surely this guy's going to cool off. He kind of never did, but yeah, it's one of those things. You don't go into a game thinking, what do we do if Quentin Grimes starts going off? Like, you don't really plan for that. So Jack says, how many layups did Dre miss? Too many in the first half. He missed that one. Oh my God. Kevin Knox, Knox's minutes again weren't great in the first half, but he kind of cut inside, made this really good read, dumped it off to Draymond for the easiest layup you've ever seen, and he just blew it. And I was there, like, screaming at the TV, like, I would have made that. 90% of people living on this earth would have made that, particularly if you're under 40 years old. Wow. Cody also says, need Butler out there to keep Green locked in. I agree. Knox says we probably need to win against New York to make this win up. Yeah, good point, because I think if you try and go... It's really... The other disappointing element to it is that if you'd won this game and then assuming you're going to beat Charlotte, like, all of a sudden you're on a 7-game winning streak, and all of a sudden, like, you're probably solidified in the top 6, and maybe even pushing up closer to 5. But because you lose this game, all of a sudden it's like now you're kind of back in the mix with a bunch of teams between 6 and 10 in the conference. Like, Sacramento beat Houston today. And you got to wonder to yourself, okay, if the goal was 4-1 during this road trip, then all of a sudden you do have to beat the Hornets, then beat the Knicks on the second night of a back-to-back, which will be difficult. And then you close out with Brooklyn, which hopefully should be an easier game again. I'd like to say, like, the Kuminga stuff is frustrating. Like, what? I know I've spoken about it, 10 minutes ago, but what is going on? What is going on there? Berserk Monk says Grimes is not a great playmaker / passer. I don't know why he wasn't pressured more. Yeah, that's a good point. I suppose if you're like, who are you doubling off? Like the 76ers, Drummond played a little bit, but aside from that, they're kind of going smaller with Yabusele at the 5, and they've kind of got 5 shooters out there when you've got PG, Maxey, Oubre, Yabusele, Grimes. So that was kind of their main 5. And so who are you doubling off in that situation? Because, like, all those guys could hurt you from 3-point range. And, like, Maxey had a poor game, but you don't want to be necessarily doubling off of him to to try and pressure Quentin Grimes. Like, that just, I know on the basis of this game you could argue for that, but still it's not really the move you're going to make. Jay says the Warriors went 6 minutes without scoring in the second quarter. The non-Steph minutes in the first half are what lost the Warriors the game. And that's one of those things where if Butler was out there, that's a different story. The Warriors are probably within touching distance, 4 or 5 points down, or they're up at halftime, and then they probably run away with it in the second half. Berserk Monk says, what was the stat when Curry was off the floor prior to Butler? I think the Warriors were like a minus 90 or something. Yeah, probably something along those lines. Jay says, Buddy Hield almost cost me a laptop. And that was... The frustrating thing was, like, he was 0 of 6 from 3, and he probably should have taken more than 6 3-point attempts. There were times in the second half, or even in the first half, when Steph was off the floor and the 76ers like went zone, and there were times where Buddy was kind of open on the wing and like they'd swing it to him, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, this is your job. Your job is to take and make threes. You've made more threes than any other person in the league since like 2019. Like, this is your job, and you're passing these ones up. So he almost should have taken more than 6. And you could point and say, oh, well, I'm glad he didn't because he went 0 of 6. But some of these, like, he should be, when the other team is zoning up like that, he should be the zone buster. He should be the one that, a couple of feet beyond the arc, like still firing away and drilling some and making them go out of that. Instead, he was kind of passive on it, and he just, didn't have any confidence in this game. And I'm glad, like, he played 16 and a half minutes, right? Which is, a lot of people are going to point to it and say, oh, well, Buddy Hield kind of lost the Warriors the game. And yeah, he makes a couple more threes. He could have won it for the Warriors. But again, he only played 16 minutes, which is good from Steve. Like, if he doesn't have it in games like this, which he didn't, then he should only be playing 12 to 16, 12 to 17 minutes, something like that. So, Rather says no secondary scorer, no secondary or third scorer. You're missing both with Butler and Kuminga. Berserk Monk says Pods was definitely overhyped. His true self came out tonight. Lol, Buddy, nothing surprising out of his performance. I'm not having a crack at Pods for one bad game. Like, he's been excellent for the last 12 to 15. I do agree with you that, like, he's not ready to lead a bench unit. Like, I don't think that's the case. We saw that at the start of the season. We saw it in this game. I just think he's the perfect, fifth guy. Like, I think he's great as like a fifth starter right now, which is a great player to have for a second-year guy. And we'll see in time whether or not he can improve and be better than that. He might well be this kind of all-star caliber player that he wishes to be. But right now, he's like a really, really, really good role player. And that's fine. That's great. And he's been playing brilliantly alongside Steph and Jimmy and Draymond. Like, there's an art to that, and he does it really well. So I'm not having a crack at him for a game where it just, it doesn't, with Butler out, he's asked to fulfill a role that he's not necessarily, fit to carry at this point of his career, which, again, this guy's played still less than, what has he played? Just like 100 NBA games, just over 120, 130 NBA games. He's in his second year. Like, it's fine. Chill. Steve says, get rid of Buddy Hield and Steve Kerr. Buddy is consistently inconsistent. He's not a winner. That man's probably going to get traded in the offseason because his $8-9 million contract is probably fairly valuable, particularly when, well, not valuable, but it's tradable because isn't the third year like non-guaranteed or very slightly guaranteed? So it's almost an expiring contract next season. Ghost says, is Trace hurt? He could have given us more than Looney. No, I think he was available. Pretty sure he was available. So, yeah, it just didn't get used again, which I think is going to be a common theme here. Andrew says, very bad loss to the Warriors tonight against the 76ers without Jimmy Butler. Not a good sign for the Warriors. It's disappointing, but I wouldn't say it's a bad. Like, I don't know how much you can take from it when you're missing your second and third best scorer. Pretty simple. Jay says, Trace can't make a layup. It's a big, I'm surprised he's not in our G League team getting reps. I mean, if he's not going to play, it's actually a good point. It's a legitimately good point. If he's not going to play, he should be down in Santa Cruz playing because he could probably get some confidence back. You go down there and have like 20 and 15 and get some confidence back. It's a good point. Robbie says Jimmy needs to play next game. Fingers crossed these back spasms are just maybe something he was questionable yesterday, so it clearly wasn't just something he woke up with. But yeah, fingers crossed. Ghost says Dre thinks he's fouled on every layup attempt. Also says back spasms linger, so I doubt he plays versus Charlotte. Andrew the Goat says the Warriors suck without Jimmy Butler and show that they can't beat 76ers that is injured. The Warriors are not a serious team. They just lost to an injured 76ers team. 76ers are missing Embiid. Okay. Yeah, that's a big out. But then, I'm not sure I'd be putting my arms up and down saying, oh, we're missing Kyle Lowry and Eric Gordon. What are those guys really giving you at this point in their careers? They're pretty washed. No offense to those guys. And then Jared McCain had an excellent start to his rookie season, but he's also still a rookie. So, are we saying they're really injured? I know Embiid's out. Okay, huge. But he's kind of always out injured, so it's not a surprise. Robbie says, I remember when JK got hurt and I thought he would be back in a few games. Clearly, I was wrong. Andrew, continually not a fan. Sean 10 says, hey, mate, tough loss. But considering how bad of a game Maxey had, this is a really bad loss when Quentin Grimes dropped 44. Draymond's defense today is really bad, especially letting Yabusele score 18 points and shooting 5 for 7 from 3 off the bench. Can we talk about the stretch that Draymond had in the second quarter, which was perhaps the worst 4-possession sequence I've ever seen from Draymond? He had that layup that he just blew from the Knox pass, which, again, my nan could have made. She's in a nursing home. He then had a late closeout on a Lonnie Walker 3, I think. Or no, a Yabusele 3. So he went missed layup, Yabusele 3 over Draymond, and then Draymond just inexplicably turned the ball over, and then Lonnie Walker hit a 3 over him in the corner. And it was just the Warriors, I think, went from that was like a tie ball game to the 76ers all of a sudden up 6, and it's just yuck. Steve says, go get another player that can put up points. It's a bad sign, bro. They need as much as they can get when Steph sits and Butler not available. God, get someone that can score for the 13, 14, 15 spot. Well, I was interested in the Knox minutes in the first half because I was like, well, maybe he's actually the guy that needs to try and score here. But, you say go get someone who can score for the 13th, 14th, 15th roster spot, but who's available? If you're a legitimately good scorer in the NBA, you're on a roster, right? You're not sitting here at the start of March without a contract. And so I just don't think that guy exists. I don't know. If you've got any thoughts, let me know. Robbie says, I still have optimism, especially since Steph is still playing well. There's 7 out of 9, right? I'm not going to, it's a disappointing loss. Don't get me wrong. I'm not overreacting because you're missing Jimmy Butler and you're missing Jonathan Kuminga. Those two guys play in this game, you win, right? And I think if those two guys return and play anywhere near their best, the Warriors are going to be really good over the rest of the regular season. I'm still pretty confident they will get the 6th seed. I'm pretty confident on that. Might be wrong, but today's game, as disappointing as it was, doesn't change that for me. Berserk Monk says, Yabusele was such a good pickup for the Sixers. Imagine if the Warriors had snagged him instead of Buddy. Good point. Probably wouldn't have seen Quentin Post necessarily developed. You probably would only see one of Yabusele or Post in the rotation. And so, yes, you can look at Yabusele being a very, very, would be a very good pickup for this Warriors team. But I don't think you would have seen Post develop like this. So maybe it's almost a good thing as well. Duststream says Draymond nearly lost that game single-handedly. Missed layups, turnovers, gave up so many open threes. Stunk. Yeah, not a good Draymond game. Sean 10 says this is a redemption season for Yabusele in the NBA, considering he's been out of the league for over 5 seasons. Yeah, he basically just got a contract for how well he performed for France in the Olympics and that huge dunk he had over LeBron. Ruther says, yeah, Knox needs to be more aggressive. Robbie says, I think this team works when you have Steph with Jimmy or JK. Curry can't carry that hard every game. Agree. Steve says, this team can't win with Kerr. Knox gets 7 minutes, but he played more and did jack. Yeah, it's easy to say in hindsight. Easy to say. Knox was a minus 14 in his 7.5 minutes. Went to the free throw line, had 1 point, missed a 3, wildly missed a kind of running banker too that didn't even hit rim. So, yeah, this kind of stuff's just going to be really easy once they get fully healthy, hopefully. And I suppose there was no real injuries out of this game aside from the Post had a bit of an ankle issue. But once they're fully healthy, it's like Steph, Pajemski, Butler, Moody, Draymond, Post, Kuminga, Like that's clearly your top 7, right? And then you sprinkle in Buddy, GP2, Looney, and that's kind of your 10. And then Gee, like maybe Gee's still got to play. I don't know. There's still going to be some question marks here. Priscilla says the thing about JK is it was a grade 3 high ankle sprain, which means he would go on at least the 8 weeks, and knowing he's dealing with swelling in practice means he's not ready to return. Berserk says, did Knox blow his chance to prove he can get real minutes? Probably. Yeah, probably. Effalang says Knox is not looking good tonight. Dash Stream says they are who they are, sorely lacking. What are they sorely lacking? I think you could see they lack Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga in this game, but the fortunate thing is they've actually got those guys on the roster, and they should be back. Well, Butler will hopefully be back against the Hornets. They should beat the Hornets even if he's out. And then obviously, Kuminga sounds like now, we thought he might have been back against the Hornets, but it sounds like he might have to wait till Saturday, a week from now, when they play the Pistons. Street Story says bad coaching, bad rotations. It's always a common theme when the Warriors lose. Pile on Steve. I don't think it was necessarily Steve's fault in this game. None of the minute stuff really. I mean, you can pick and choose a few things. You could say, Post should have played more. You could say Hield should have played less. You could say Knox maybe should have got more. I don't know. I don't know. The minutes to Spurgeon seem about right. Robbie says this team is really dependent on roles, so when we have our main scorers out, it is a problem. I think that's a problem for every team, isn't it? Like, it's pretty simple. Like, you take 2 of your best 4 players out. Like, I think every team is going to struggle. Now, some teams, fair enough, they can deal with it better than others, no doubt about that. But you're without 2 of your best 4 players and 2 of your top 3 scorers, you're going to struggle. Rutherford says, will LaMelo play? I'm not sure. What's going on with LaMelo? LaMelo Ball injury. What's the latest? He played today. Played today against the Wizards, and the Wizards got a win by 13 in Charlotte. If Washington can beat Charlotte by 13 in Charlotte, the Warriors should be, again, winning by 30 plus. And Jordan Poole didn't play either. Chris Middleton. How bizarre is it to watch Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart on the Wizards? Oh, it's hilarious. LaMelo Ball went 7 of 19 shooting, 5 of 13, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Mark Williams had 24 and 12. Do you reckon the Lakers regret rescinding that trade? Anyway, the Wizards got the win. Berserk Monk says at least other West teams took losses today as well. Yeah, you had the Grizzlies losing to the Spurs, and I don't really feel like the Spurs are going to be a threat, obviously, with no Wemby for the rest of the season, so that doesn't really bother me. Sacramento beat Houston, which is kind of like 50-50. Like, it's disappointing because the Kings draw closer to the Warriors in the standings, but so do the Rockets, I suppose, because, I don't know, you could see them slipping a little bit. Maybe the Warriors could get to 5. And then obviously the Mavericks losing to the Bucks is helpful. Jay says, let Taron Armstrong play instead of Pajemski. Jay, are you Australian saying that? Because I feel like only an Australian would say that. Steve says, get rid of Kerry. Does not give players any room to play through mistakes. This coach pisses me off. Buddy should be 9th, man. Tell you what, the Buddy Hield off-season $8 to $9 million contract. Wonder what the Warriors could get. Don't know. Because I feel like that's going to be a trade package. Like, here's Buddy Hield and the picks we've got. What can it get us? I know it can't get you much, like it's 8 or 9 million, but who knows? All right, guys, I've been going for over 34 minutes here. I'm going to finish it up. Buddy for KD, says Robbie. Totally fair. Well, if they are interested in KD, then Buddy could certainly be part of the package, but obviously they've got to get to that $50 million mark salary-wise. Das Streams has 4-go lineup at one point. They got torched by a team that lost 8 in a row. 9 in a row it actually was for Philly. They hadn't won since the last time they won. Luka was a part of the Mavericks still. So there you go. Rutherford says there's some gossip Warriors will try to get Giannis. I mean, if Giannis is ever available, the Warriors are going to be trying to get in the picture for him. No doubt about that. That's the dream for Joe Lacob and the ownership in the front office. All right, guys, I'm going to finish it up there. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on replay or via your podcast feed, I'll be back for another post-game live after Monday's game against the Hornets. All things going to plan. Just a couple of contract stuff. Kevin Knox got a second 10-day contract. I'd imagine, even despite his slightly disappointing minutes in the rotation over the last 2 games, I'd imagine he'll still get a rest of season contract. At the end of this second-day contract, you can't be signed to a third 10-day contract. The max is 2. Yuri Collins has not got another 10-day contract, I don't think. So perhaps the Warriors do something there. We'll wait and see. Once again, thank you guys for the support and enjoy the rest of your weekend.